Months ago in the book of Exodus, and that's where we continue to be. As we started, I asked the question, what holds you back? And we talked about many things that keep us from living life as God has freed us from the things that keep us back. And so I want you to continue to look and ask yourself what holds you back as we look in Exodus chapter 17 today. Well, many of you may know what today is. Today is October the 13th. Today, on this day in history, I don't know if you know this or not, but it was on this day in 1775 that the Continental Congress realized they needed a navy. You see, as they got ready to deal with some things, they had heard that the British were coming this direction. And they understood that they needed, while they hadn't really thought about the water, they needed a navy to protect them as the water on the waterfront. So it was on this day that they organized the administration and the construction of what would one day become the U.S. Navy. And so today, as we begin and we see this, and that's what happened on this day, I want to ask you, are you ready for battle? You see, all of us as Christians need to get ready because battles are going to come in your life. There's going to be times in which you're going to face situations that you may not be expecting. There's going to be times in your life in which you wonder what in the world is going on. Because as Christians or as non-Christians, the battles that we all will face. Today, as we come in chapter 17, we're going to see the Israelites have been freed. They have been freed out of bondage. The bondage in which they had been in for 430 years. And they had prayed that God, please send someone to get us out of this bondage. And they had prayed, and God sent
Moses.
Thank you, Marcy. Moses. See? And Moses came and he said, let my people go. And Pharaoh said no. And then the plagues came and then they left. And then the water went aside. You remember all that, right? And then they went through. And pretty soon they were belly aching really quick. And today we're going to see they're going to face their first battle. Exodus chapter 17. We'll be looking starting in verse 8. Starting in verse 8. If you are physically able, would you please stand in honor of reading of God's Word? Exodus chapter 17, starting in verse 8, the Bible says this. The Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, choose some of our men to go out to fight the Amalekites. And tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hands. So Joshua fought the Amalekites as Moses had ordered. And Moses and Aaron and Hur went to the top of the hill. And as long as Moses held up his hands, the Israelites were winning. But whenever he lowered his hands, the Amalekites were winning. When Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone and put it under him. And he sat on it. And Aaron and Hur held his hands up, one on one side and one on the other, so that his hands remained steady till sunset. So Joshua overcame the Amalekite army with the sword. And then the Lord said to Moses, write this on a scroll as something to be remembered, and make sure that Joshua hears it, because I will completely blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. Moses built an altar and called it, the Lord is my banner, he said. For hands were lifted up to the throne of the Lord, and the Lord will be at war against the Amalekites from generation to generation. Let's pray. Father God, thank you for this day, God. Thank you for your word, and thank you, Lord, for this opportunity to live in a country in which we can come and worship freely. I thank you, Lord, that we're able to see how your hand has worked since the beginning of time. How your hand created all that we see. How your hand is still working today. God, I pray that right now, Lord, that as we come here, many facing battles in their life in which they're seeking answers. Many facing difficulties in which they're not sure exactly what your plans are for them. But I pray that today, Lord, that they will experience you, they will hear your voice, maybe for the first time. And God, that I pray that as they come here this morning and maybe they hear your voice, they have the courage to step forward and follow what you called them to be and to do. I pray, God, for this church. I pray, God, that you'll continue to bless it, but I pray, God, that we'll continue to have a burning desire in our hearts, not only to reach each other, but, God, to reach out and reach this community. I pray, God, that revival will begin. Revival will start with this church, with each of us, and it will begin to be seen throughout this country, God. A country that needs you. I pray, God, that whatever these people face this morning, Lord, I pray, God, that you will take this time and just speak to them, comfort them, and guide them. God, I pray that as a people, we always look towards you and seek you first. I thank you, Lord, for sending your Son and the hope that we have in that. And I pray all these things in Jesus' holy name. Amen. We face battles we never expect. And battles often require us to wait. They make us tired. And they make us ask for help. But mark it down. The war has already been won.
Amen.
Today, as we come this morning, many of you came in here this morning and you came in with your feet dragging and you really didn't want to come in. You were like Marie talked about. You wished you could have just stayed in the bed. Some of you are here today because you haven't been here in a long time or maybe ever, and you came in this morning and you know you're facing something in your life and you hope and you pray God will give you direction. Today, I want you to understand that every one of us, Christians, non-Christians, Americans, non-Americans, big, little, old, young, whatever, we all face battles. And as we come to this passage today, I want you to understand that we face battles we never expect. This passage, as I picked it out, it says the Amalekites. Now, the Amalekites, we hear about them and we'll hear about them throughout the Old Testament. The Amalekites came from a guy named Esau. Esau is where they came from. You remember the story. Remember Abraham, and they wanted a son, and then came along Isaac, and then Isaac married Rebekah. And Rebekah had these two twins, Esau and Jacob. And remember, they were two twins, and Esau was the hairy one and the hunter and the man's man. And Jacob was kind of mama's boy. And you remember the story where Esau sold his birthright for a bowl of Campbell's soup, right?
Bowl of beans.
And so he did that, and so Esau then got mad and angry, and that anger has passed on through the generations. Amalek is the grandson of Esau, and that's where the Amalekites come from. The Amalekites are known as desert dwellers. They are people in the Old Testament who like to go and attack and plunder for the wealth. And we see here in this passage that they were a group that liked to attack, especially people they didn't like. And they did not like the Israelites. The Amalekites are also kind of given credit for something unusual. Something that still occurs today. Something I didn't even realize, but they were the ones that get credit for domesticating camels. They were the ones that were actually able to get on camels and ride. And camels were perfect for this terrain. And they could run, they say, as much as 45 miles an hour. And so as people, the Israelites, would be walking around, they were perfect prey for these guys and had weapons and were plunderers and armies. And they would come and attack on their camels. Now, I don't know about you, but when we have camels in Bethlehem experience, I can't imagine getting on one of those and going real fast. But these guys had trained on it. Now, I looked to try to find the video to see, because they actually outrun horses in some cases. And so I started to try to find the video, and I found out there's still $1 million races with camels these, and they have, you can look it up, they have little remote-controlled jockeys on the back, little bitty things, and they actually have little whips, and these guys driving the cars along the camels and have radio controls and talk to them. You think I'm crazy? Look it up. But here we go. They were the first to domesticate the camels, and the Amalekites would go and attack. And it says in verse 8, it says they came and attacked the Israelites. There's no indication there was any war. The Israelites have been out, and they feel like they're looking good, and here come the Amalekites. They get ready to come and attack. What's more, as it says, at Rephidim, which Rephidim was further south than where the Amalekites would normally be. And so what this tells me is that they had heard that maybe the Israelites were out there, they were isolated, they were in a place in which they would have been easy pickings. And so they decided, we're going to go and we're going to attack. In your life today, you may be facing the battle. It came out of nowhere. You had no idea that this was going to happen to you. And something came, and without warning, without notice, you feel like you're under attack. Oftentimes, in the Christian life, we wonder, where is God? I came in today, and I told everybody to get a goldfish cracker. Now, you're going to have to pretend that it's not a goldfish, it's just a fish, but how many of you still have your cracker? Some of you? How many of you have already ate some of them? I know some of you have been eating them, I've been watching. But those of you who don't have one, just play along with me for a second. Look at that goldfish cracker. See, what I want you to do is when you look at that goldfish cracker, I want you to think of the story of cod. Now, cod, as you know, is a fish. Now, in the 1800s, cod, was basically harvested around Boston. And they wanted, I see you eating already. I see that. Candy. Okay, never mind. Forget it. All right, so in the 1800s, they wanted to get the fish, the cod, they wanted to get it towards San Francisco to sell it. They had a problem. The problem was the only way to get from Boston to San Francisco was to go all the way around South America. Well, they tried to figure out how do we ship the cod from Boston to San Francisco, so they tried packing it nice. And as they went from that long distance, they found out the fish wouldn't last in ice. So they didn't know what else to do, so they built tanks. And they put tanks, and they put the water in there, and they put the cod in it. And they took it, as they went from Boston all the way around South America and came over to San Francisco, they found out that the fish was still alive. The problem is during that period of time, the fish just sat in the tanks, and they kind of lost their color, they kind of lost their taste, and they just weren't very good. So somebody looked at the cod and said, let's put a couple of catfish in there in the tank. See, the catfish is the cod's natural predator. As they put the catfish in there, they realized that the fish would have to swim in order not to get eaten, not to get attacked. And so as you look at a goldfish cracker, I want you to understand that when they went from Boston all the way around South America and ended up in San Francisco, they found that the codfish was still in great shape. When you look at a goldfish cracker, I want you to think about that God may have you facing a battle today. Why does God have you facing a battle? He has you facing the battle so that you can become stronger and you'll be a real people for hope. You see, as we come and we face battles we may not expect, you need to understand that there's a reason for it. We see that when we face battles, you need to remember that battles require us often to wait. Battles require us often make us tired, and battles often make us ask for help. We see in the next part of this passage in verse 9 that Moses says to Joshua, listen, choose some of our men and go out and fight the Amalekites. Today, you may be facing something, and you may be thinking, I don't know how to deal with this. Moses saw Joshua. This is the first time Joshua is mentioned in the Bible. And he says to Joshua, he says, I want you to go out and find us some army guys. Now, the NIV kind of misrepresents this a little in the way it says it. The way the NIV writes it, choose some of our men to go out and fight. It's almost as though, hey, listen, I'm going to pick a few of you guys, and that's good. That's really not the way it should be translated. It really should be translated probably more like, choose men for us to fight. In other words, we don't have an army here. And the way he would have to do this is he would do it like this. Everybody stand up. The person next to you is asleep. Wake up. All right. Everybody stand up. Now, if you are a man, remain standing. If you are under the age of 20, sit down. If you are over the age of 50, sit down.
Oh, come on.
There's our army.
Start praying.
There you go. That's how they would have to pick an army. And generally, the requirements later was you were between 20 and 50. You were a man, and you would have to say, listen, we're going to look and see who's our best fighters. And you narrowed it down for me really quick. And so when they were trying to figure out who's our army here, he's not saying, listen, go pick the best guys. He's saying, go find me some army guys. And the reality of it is they've been out of bondage for a couple of months. They have no weapons. The only weapons that they would even have would be weapons that they had made out in the desert. They had no weapons. They had no training. And the whole catch of the whole deal is he says, tomorrow. Look in verse 9. He says, tomorrow I'll stand on top of the hill. Go get me an army, and then tomorrow we're going to fight. So you 4 or 5 guys that were still standing, I didn't know how that was going to go, but we're in trouble. And so as we look here, notice he says tomorrow. Now, isn't that an odd thing in the Old Testament? When he says, listen, we're going to do this and we're going to do it tomorrow. How many of you like to wait? I mean, none of us do. We always want to get out before the Methodists so we can get to the restaurants first, right? Because we don't want to wait. And the reality of it is we come here and we say, tomorrow I'm going to stand on top of the hill. We hate to wait. But why would he say tomorrow? Why would he say we're going to go out there and we're going to win this game for the gift? He doesn't. He says tomorrow. You see in this, throughout the whole book of Exodus, every time tomorrow is used, it shows that God is about to do something big. God is about to punish whoever it is that's coming across his people. You see in the plagues, he'd always say, tomorrow God's going to send all this. Tomorrow God's going to do this. Tomorrow God. Even with the manna. On the Sabbath, you're going to need to get enough for tomorrow. Whenever tomorrow is used in the book of Exodus, it always means get ready. Something big is about to happen. And he sees here, as he says, tomorrow I'm going to go stand on the top of the hill. When he says I'm going to be on the hill, he's looking forward. Tomorrow, I'm going to be up on the hill. You know, when we're facing difficulties, do you only look at today, or do you look at the future? And then he says, listen, tomorrow I'm going to be standing on the hill, and I'm going to be holding up that staff. The staff looks back. Remember the staff? The staff that parted the waters, the staff that brought the plagues, the staff that turned into a snake. When you're facing difficulty, you need to always remember that when you need courage in the future, look back, and then you can move forward. Today, you can trust God because what God has already done. We can see what God has already done. It's in the Word, but hopefully you have markers in your life in which you can see how God's hand has worked in your life. I can see markers that God has worked in my life. And whenever I face difficulties or I face questions about God, where are you? God, what are you doing? When you get discouraged, understand that God still has a plan. And you still can look forward. And we see here that he says tomorrow. When you face battles, it may mean you need to wait. But God is still in control. Another strange thing about this story is this whole bit about as long as Moses held his hands up in verse 11, the Israelites were winning. Now, isn't it odd that Moses would go out there and hold his hands up with the staff? Probably with the staff. And as he was holding his hands up, well, they'd be doing good. I know none of you ever do this. But me personally, if the Cowboys are going down towards the goal, I don't change chairs. You know what I mean? You know, I got to eat another candy bar. The last time I ate one, they scored. Whatever the deal is, right? Anybody here superstitious when you watch your teams play? Daryl Reeder used to come over. We watched every Cowboy game, and he'd come in with the same jersey on. Well, if they won this week, great, wear the same jersey. But if they lost, change clothes. Right? And as long as his hands were up, they were winning. This is an odd passage. And the Bible's not really clear why. We often think maybe it's because he was praying. But if he was praying, then when his hands went down, why was God not listening? There's no word spoken here. He doesn't put it that he was praying, or why didn't it just say that? So we're not really sure what the correlation to this is. But we know that when God saw it and his hands were up, they were winning, and when his hands were down, they were up. You see here in this passage that when his hands grew tired, we see that Aaron and Hur came and helped him. You know, whenever, come here, Robert. Here, let me show you something. And I need a couple more people. Charlie, there you go. Come on up here, Robert. Robert, if you can come right here, I want you to hold your hands up. Both of them. All right? Now, just stay like that for a while. His hands are going to get tired, right? All right, now, you getting tired? Keep your hands up. Let's sit down right there. Can you sit down? Oh, we're losing. Okay, now, hold your hands up. Now, here's what they probably did. It says they threw a rock that he sat on and did his hands. Now, if they were coming trying to hold his hands up, what do you think would happen? Your arms would get tired too. However, if you come right over here on this side, do it this way. Put your hands through. No, do it like this. We practiced this earlier, you can tell. Me and Charlie could stand here and hold his hands up this way. Because he's lower than us, we're not holding our hands up. I don't know if that's what it is, but I do think, thank you, Robert. Let me help you up. Give him a round of applause. Robert can hold his hands up. So you Army guys, you're in love. Robert's holding his hands up for you. The reality of it is, as he sat down, it took help. Today, you may be facing a battle, and you may get tired of waiting. But remember, you may get tired, but it's okay to ask for help. You know, when JW came up here this morning and he says, anybody else have any prayer needs? And we started to say, I'm here to tell you that as a church that loves one another, we pray for each other. Prayer changes things. Prayer changes things. I believe that with all my heart. Now, it's not like a wish list that I get everything that I ask for, but I'm here to tell you that God's will is perfect. And when we pray for each other, we help each other, we encourage each other. And as believers, we need encouragement. Today, I need encouragement. Many of you sitting here need encouragement. That song that we sing, the Chain Breaker, there's a line in there that says, somebody testify. Testify. I know we don't really talk about that much in Baptist churches, but the reality of it is we do need to testify. When God does miraculous things in your life, we need to stand up and say, God did this. Amen. And we can understand it. We can appreciate it because God is still working. When we face battles, the main thing I want you to remember is mark it down. The war has already been won. You see, it says that whenever he had his hands up, Joshua, in verse 13, so Joshua overcame the Amalekite army with the sword. God won the battle. After the battle was over, The Lord tells Moses in verse 14, go write it on a scroll as something to be remembered. The short-term significance of this is that God says, listen, tell everybody what God has done. Write it down. Remember it. The long-term deal is so that you can remember it when your memory goes dim. I know all of you have sharp memories, but I can tell you, people tell me stuff when I'm walking into church and say, you need to remember such and such as this week, or this is going on this week, and I say, call the church office, because I won't remember. I won't remember, I can tell you. And it says, write it down. You know, we pray, and you don't even realize God answers our prayers. We pray for rain this summer, and we got it. Then we pray that the rain will stop, and it does. We pray for cold weather, we pray for hot weather, and God does it all. And he says, write it down. Write it down. Why does he say write it down? And he says, tell Joshua. Joshua needs this as he begins to become the leader. And Joshua's going to need to hear it because he's going to face discouraging times. And he'll need to look back and he'll need to see that remember what God already did. He says, write it down. Write it down for something to be remembered. This building here has special memories for many of you. There's been times in here where some of you were married. There's been times in here where your loved one left here to leave this earth. There's been times, happy times, bad times, when you walk in here, there's times that you remember. There's times when that person came to you when you were at the lowest place and they hurt you. There's been times when you were seeking an answer to a question and you might have been sitting in those pews and you heard the voice of God. Remember those times. It says that then Moses built an altar and he called it the Lord is my banner. We see that altars are built a lot in the Old Testament. They're not so much in the New Testament. You see, wonder why. Because the altar that we now face, the one that matters now, is an empty tomb. The cross and the empty tomb are altars now. We understand what God has already done. There's no other reason. An altar was built so that people could remember God doing something. And nothing's going to trump what Jesus Christ has already done for us. It says here, Moses built this altar and called it the Lord is my banner. The word banner there is the Hebrew word nest. The nest is what was on a ship. It was a pole. It was a pole that was used in war and battle. It was generally used in a military context. And there was a pole in which people would see it and identify. That's where we go. That's where we regroup. That's where we go and get our instruction. And as he says this, he says, listen, the Lord is my signet. The Lord is my pole. The Lord is the place that I go for instruction. It's a place for us to rally. And we come in here on Sunday morning, and it should be a place for us to come around. A place to come and see what God has done. And he says that Moses goes ahead and gives credit to where it is. He said they lifted it up to the throne of the Lord. Today, as you face the battle, I want you to understand that God has a plan for you. That plan is not oftentimes easy for us to see, but he will fight for you because he loves you. I read a story this week about Lindsay. Lindsay is a woman who, on the outside, appears to have it all. It appears that she is a woman that has everything. She has money, she has family, she has family, she has what appears to be everything. Lindsay was born into a Christian family. She was born into a Christian family, and the Christian family had brought her up in the way that it should, and they had a little hamburger stand, had a few stores. The hamburger stand, they like to put Bible verses on the cup. But this hamburger stand started to become pretty successful, and her grandparents had started, and also included their kids, and their kids were involved in it. And Lindsay's dad was also involved in it. And Lindsay and her dad had a close relationship. Lindsay and her dad liked to talk and play and all that when she was young. About 5 or 6 years old, and she had a great time. As Lindsay started to get a little older, she started to understand that her dad had some
Daddy had gotten to a point in which Lindsay had realized that he had drug addiction. He struggled with some alcohol and drug addiction, and as he struggled with these problems, she and him were still trying to be close, but he had an affair, and her mother and him cut his loose. At the time Lindsay was 12, her daddy had passed away. Drugs. Lindsay now knew that her life. Dad was gone. But she thought she could keep She found a man when she was 18 years old. She married and had a kid. And shortly after, she realized that it was just a quick fix. It wasn't really what she should have done. And after a couple of years, they were divorced. She divorced from him. She had an affair with the man, and as they got married. And she started to introduce drugs and alcohol to the marriage, and she knew she couldn't do that. She started doing drugs. She said, I'm already divorced. I'm just saying, what difference does it make? She said, I'm already. She started in this abusive relationship, and the relationship wasn't healthy for her. She had an affair. She had an affair. And they divorced. She jumped out of that one and into another one, and his third marriage, and it's also a toxic relationship. But this man, according to her, he married her only for her money. And he had bunches of affairs, the drugs, the alcohol. And he said, I can't do this anymore. I can't allow this to be treating her, in her words, like trash. I felt so bad. She had a couple more kids. She had 3 kids. She was facing a third divorce. She didn't know what to do. She always needed somebody to fill that void. After her third divorce, she understood that Jesus was the only one to fill that void. She started to seek and spend time with him, and she started to realize that he was the only thing that could fill that void. She started to spend that time and grow, and she started to understand how much she needed him. She started to fill that void. She got her life straight. She began to put more into her work. Began to do more in that direction. And she realized she needed a man to fill it that only Jesus Christ could fill. I wrote down a couple of things that she said in the story that I read this week. She said, in the depths of her devastation, Lindsay Snyder, came to a life-changing realization. I finally found out that the deep need in my heart can only be filled by Jesus and my identity in him. She started to feel broken. She understood that I've been the one to hurt, and I've been hurt. She understood that she needed to grow. She needed to do that, and it could only come through Jesus Christ. She sought the answers. She understood that as her marriage was failing, and she understood that she was in a place, she said, I can't do ministry. I can't do anything right. And she realized the only way she could do that was to do it right with the Lord. Her words were, and she needed to let it go. She said that while driving through New Orleans one day, she heard a passage that she had heard and read before, Isaiah 61 in her head. And it said, the passage reads like this in part. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives, and release from darkness for the prisoners. You see that we face battles. The thing that caught my attention as I studied this week for this passage, and the reason I included Lindsay, is she had this in one of the things that I read this week. The mother of 4 pointed out that many churches are afraid to talk about spiritual warfare. Our churches are full of people that are facing spiritual warfare. We need to be prepared for battle. We need to understand that God is good enough to face these battles. If God says tomorrow, I'm going to do something to you. God says you may get tired, but I'm here to help. God says I am the one that can fill that void. I filled that void when I said Jesus Christ becoming down the cross. Some of you may know, Lindsay Snyder is a praise force worth somewhere around $1 billion today. At age 37, she is now the president of In-N-Out Burger. Some of you may say that word. And she's worth all this money. The money is not what fills her void. The fame is not what fills her void. Men is not what fills her void. The only way to ever fill her void is through Jesus Christ. I'm here to say today that you may be facing difficulties. And spiritual warfare is not for sissies. Spiritual warfare is tough. And you need to understand that God may say, wait, God may say, step forward now. But you need to be ready. God may say, you're going to get tired, but ask for help. God may say, I don't know why you're waiting so long. There may be catfish in the pond, but I'm here to tell you that God is big enough to protect you. God is big enough to handle it. The question is, are you ready? If you've never confessed Him as your Lord and Savior, today can be that day. Because God understood that you were sinners like I am. And there's no hope without Jesus Christ. And He sent Jesus so that we can come before Him and accept Him as our personal Lord and Savior. Many of you have already done that. If you've never done it, today can be that day. And just a second, you come forward and say, I'm ready to accept Jesus. But many of you have already done that. But you may be in the midst of the battle. Maybe no one else here even knows what that battle is or what you're facing. But I'm here to ask you, what will you do? Can you let it go? Jesus, He's got His nail-scarred hands before us. Trust Him. Will you? All about it. I pray today, Lord, that if there's one here today that has never accepted you as their Lord and Savior, I pray that today, God, is that day. I pray, God, that today may be a day in which people have come here and had no idea why they were here. But maybe Lindsay's story, or maybe the story of Moses, or the story of understanding who Joshua was and who he will become, will be enough to let them understand that you have a plan for them. That, Lord, that we don't need to fear the future, because we know the war has already been won. That we don't need to stay in relationships that keep us from coming to you. That anything that keeps us from being what you have us called to be is something we need to let go of. That I pray that today, God, that as we hear your voice, Lord, we respond. Whether it's to join this church, whether it's to say, listen, I've been off track. I'm going to get back on track. I'm going to do that not on my own power, but on God's. Because when we try to do it on our own, Lord, we know we're not going to make it. But God, I pray that each one that's sitting in these pews today is ready to let go.